Welcome back to the Leave No Doubt Fatherhood podcast. We're excited to be here with you today. Today we are going to talk about belief systems and how they come into play with your parenting, kind of how one's created, and just some stuff to think about as a father, as kind of a middle-aged guy. So yeah, we'll start there. If you haven't, it would be helpful to listen to a couple of past episodes on kind of the work I do. It's called Grief Recovery. That may fill in some blanks if you have any questions as we cover stuff today. Also, just as a side note, just at the beginning of the episode, what I'm talking about today is covered pretty well in the book we work from. It's called the Grief Recovery Handbook. You can get it at pretty much any library or bookstore or whatever like that. So I'll be referring to some concepts that are in that book if this stuff sounds interesting to you. But basically, the first thing I want to kind of talk about is how a belief system is formed. So when we're super young, right? And there's different studies on this, so I don't want to get lost too much in the details. But just generally speaking, we gather a ton of our belief system by the time we're 2 to 3 years old, right? And by the time we're 15 years old, we have most of our belief system on how we're going to deal with the world.
That's crazy. I didn't realize it was 2 to 3.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Uh-oh.
So we are we're sponges, right? We're
Yep.
sponges right from the very start, and we are accumulating data and we're recording it so that we can use it at a later date, right? And so hopefully we're in an environment where a lot of that stuff is good information, right? Unfortunately, a lot of us grow up in an environment where, that data we're collecting is not the best information, right? But essentially, we are forming our belief system from this data that we're getting from authority figures in our life, right? So obviously mom or dad or grandparents or teachers or siblings or that kind of thing. So the problem is when we are accumulating this belief system on who we are and how to deal with the world, think of your belief system as a sponge, right? It's going to suck up whatever is around. And so it'll suck up water. It could suck up oil. It could suck up poison, right?
Yep.
There's no pre-filter between your sponge and what's happening. And so that's kind of that's where we're at. And then flash forward and we're 30 or we're 40 and we're trying to be a dad and we're trying to be a husband. That old belief system can get in the way of who we want to be now, right? And does that make sense so far?
Totally. Yeah.
So, a lot of us. So let me give you a couple of examples, right? Of how you could go dig back in your belief system and be applying it now. If you grew up in a home where your father regularly abused physically your mom, right? And in our belief system, that is a normal behavior for a relationship.
Yep.
That's how a marriage goes, right? Then, right? I mean, how many people repeat that cycle, right? And years later, magically, they're in a relationship that's abusive and they're being physically abused, and it's that was familiar. That was what was acceptable in the belief system that was being formed about how a man and a woman, share a home together.
Yeah.
Now, not to say that somebody that didn't have that background when they were a kid, let's say they didn't have that abusive childhood, right? Doesn't mean that they can't find themselves in an abusive relationship later on, right? But a lot of the time that will not feel as familiar in their belief system. They're not this is just something that was that's just how it's going, right? So they may have a different opportunity to change it or maybe correct course sooner because it doesn't feel as familiar. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, again, how this pertains to us as dads is we have an opportunity to help our children, giving them a belief system that we deem as healthy, and we get to build them up and give them confidence and set them into the world as best as we can, right? That's our goal, obviously, as dads.
Or just a belief system that we actually want and agree with,
right?
Because most people are operating it's totally invisible.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, until you articulate it the way that you did, I think a lot of people just think that's just how I am. you know?
Yes, and that's a key point, right? And that's really the empowering part of this episode is
Yeah.
that sadly, when we're children, right? Again, we're just a product of our environment, right? So we don't get to hear something or see something and be like, you know what, I think that's kind of bullshit. I'm not going to live my life that way, right? We don't get to do that. Sadly, kids don't get to pick and choose what their belief system is. The beauty of you at in your 30s and me in my 40s, the beauty of it is we get to change our belief system. We get to have ownership and accountability of what we want our belief system to be about who
Yeah.
we are, how we come at the world, what is acceptable and what's not, and those kind of things, right? So, a really, really common thing I see is people who were raised with mom or dad or both who led them to believe they were a piece of shit
Yeah.
and led them to believe that they were a burden and they weren't good enough and they weren't smart enough and they were, basically unwanted. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like heartbreaking because there's so many of us probably listening to this episode who again you take that in, you're a sponge, right? And you believe that to be true because this authority figure told you that, right? So not that you can't do it in other ways, but a lot of the time with the grief recovery work, we're helping people get emotionally complete with that, give that back to whoever put that insanity into them
Yeah.
because they realize like, hey, I'm 35 years old. I'm listening to this random fatherhood podcast. That says a lot about someone, about who they want to be, right? I have a job. I'm a good husband. I've never cheated on my wife. I'm working my butt off to evolve as a person. That sounds like a pretty good human being right there,
Yeah.
right? But if we have years and years of a belief system of other people telling us that we're not that,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes late at night, sometimes when we're tired, sometimes during stressful situations, we can revert back to obsolete beliefs about who we are,
Yeah.
right? So
Well,
we
can I say something too
yeah, of
that,
course,
that
yeah.
that stands out to me as you say that is there's a period of your life where you live with your parents and you're kind of just, not thinking a lot about who you are as an individual yet. And then you get into your 20s and you start thinking about, well, what do I believe? Am I going to, be the same religious, thing as my parents, or am I going to be, you start,
Yeah,
like,
following the same line of work
yeah,
or yeah.
exactly. Like, or you start thinking about yourself as an individual. Like I remember starting to buy books in my early 20s, stuff that were like, like self-help type of books. Cause I was like, I kind of want to be like this, and what I'm saying is you start making these proactive decisions in your 20s, maybe your 30s, maybe never. But what you don't do, I think most people don't do, is look back and think about what's already there. That
Mm-hmm.
stuff is almost feels invisible. I had this experience, which I'll talk about in this episode, but there's a lot of stuff where it's like the things that are already there. So you start adding beliefs once you get into your 20s and 30s and you start shaping what you want, but you're not looking at the just decades. It's like the rings on a tree. Like you already have 20 rings on the tree and you're adding new ones. Those 20 rings may not be great, but you're not looking back thinking that I can change those or whatever. That's just kind of this invisible part of who you are and how you experience the world.
Yeah.
So much gets filtered through your perception in a way that you don't even realize, informed by those years of belief systems that were enforced.
Yes. Yes. And like the takeaway is, and again, I could give you example after example of this kind of stuff. And I'll try and give you and the listeners a couple more just so you can connect the dots. But let's say that somebody grew up in a household where like mom and dad were not home a lot and they had to like raise their younger siblings, right? And they were put in this unwinnable position and they were constantly having to apologize to mom and dad for like not making the right adult decisions when they were little children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that person's an adult and then that person is always apologizing for stuff when it's not on them, right? And they're always doing that. And let's say that somebody at some point points out to them, Sue, you're always apologizing for stuff that's not yours, right? So they just became maybe, consciously aware of this like habit that is formed over, this belief system back in the day, which is like you're responsible for everything that goes wrong in this house. And again, they can consciously be aware of this. So they can have this new information and that can feel very eye-opening. And there's like a light bulb moment, like, I'm just always apologizing for stuff that's not mine. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a win. That's a good thing. We're moving in the right direction. But what we find in our work is it is so much more powerful when you can go and get emotionally complete with that person or those events or those circumstances that made you, made that belief system what it was to you and had the intensity and the stimulus that it has for you. It's better to go and get emotionally complete with that stuff, because then in real time now, I am that much more capable of being somebody else and not having to apologize and taking in, and owning every mistake, even though most of them aren't mine, right? So that's where, again, with fatherhood, right, we don't want to repeat this stuff in our parenting with our sons and daughters. If it wasn't healthy and it was from dad or mom from the past, right? And it's easy to say, I'm not going to repeat that same thing as my dad or my mom, right? But it's harder to do that day in and day out over the course of years of child rearing, unless we have kind of taken that root out at the taken that weed out at the root and been like, hey, dad, this like belief you gave me on how to raise a kid, it's horseshit, it's bullshit. I'm done with it. I'm giving it back to you. I will not do that to my own kid. So goodbye to that. That's a whole different process than just being aware of it in real time moving forward. Like, oh man, I noticed I just sounded like my dad there,
Right.
It's like, if you don't go and kind of get rid of that stuff, trust me, you'll sound like your dad again at some point. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I think we talk a lot about how do you set the example you want for your kids and become that example. And this is kind of like you're navigating or picking up the pieces of being on the receiving end of someone else's example, which is a difficult part, because it is true. Like, you are a living example of how much your parents or your example matters to your kids, right? Because me and you, like, I know your mom a little bit, but it's like, I don't intimately know the dynamics of your parents.
Yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of how you are and your beliefs do come from them, right? Like, I'm sure you've inherited a lot of that, and I'm sure you've changed some.
Yep.
Point being that, again, if you don't sit down and think about this, you're on the receiving end of a lot of that. And so, we're talking all about moving forward. How are you kind of setting the right example for your kids? But part of taking stock of doing that and going through the process of thinking about what do you want that to be for your kids, you do have to kind of take inventory of this stuff, right? And kind of go through and think about what were those beliefs that I maybe didn't think about that, my mom or my dad gave me, whatever.
Yeah. Let me give you an example here. I just thought of this, so I don't use this example in my work, but I was thinking of it. So, and I've mentioned this on other podcasts. Like, I always want to be sensitive, because we're both going in our past. We're talking about our moms and our dads, and I want to be respectful. Like, I love my mom and dad, and I really appreciate them, and I'm grateful for the childhood I had with them as parents. So this is like nitpicky type stuff, but it was real in my life growing up. So for whatever reason, my dad, like, his jam, he was very frugal, but his jam was like every couple of years, 3-5 years, he was getting a new car. He was trading in an old car. He liked getting cars, right? That was like, he grew up poor, and his idea of being successful in his later life was getting cars. But he had this mindset, again, from whatever his belief system was formed, that like car salespeople were out to just get him, right? So I would be like in a room as he's negotiating for a car at a car dealership, and it got so heated, and like he was so like aggressive in his negotiations. Yeah, it was weird, because he was like super good dude. But you get him in a car dealership, and I was so embarrassed, and I was so I was like so again, just mortified. I just wanted to be like, I have several memories of being in car dealerships where he was just like, I know that ploy, you take my driver's license just so I stay here. I'm giving you 5 minutes and then I'm out the door. You better come back with like the number I want. Like it was heated. And the guy would be like, I'm sorry. So they were like running a game on him, right? Which
Yeah.
I get it. But he was like going with, and I'm like 10 or 8 and just mortified. Like, what is going on here, right? So this is a silly example. But the point being is his belief system at some point was people are going to take advantage of him.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you got to come in hard and you got to defend yourself and you just negotiate like an asshole, basically, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're getting taken advantage of. Well, down the road, if I go randomly to buy a car and Wyatt's in the room with me, right? I don't want to be that, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be that. I have an idea what I want to spend. I know I have an idea that they're going to probably just try and bend me over, and I'm not going to let that happen. But I'm going to change the way that this happens for my kid in the room, right? So again, it's kind of a goofy example, but for many of us, we're using old belief systems that mom and dad gave us all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether there was infidelity back in the day, right? And so that's a fear that we have in our current relationship. Whether there wasn't enough enough time wasn't spent with us,
Yeah.
and that's a fear that we're like bringing into it, like it forward. So again, it's important to take appraisal of what is your belief system and what do you want to keep and what do you not want to keep. So back to the kind of goofy car example dealership thing, right? I just know that in my belief system, I don't want what my dad did, which is everyone is trying to take advantage of you when you're buying a car or
Yeah.
whatever, when you're buying something, right? So I'm going to be like, Dad, I'm giving you back that belief system. I don't need to carry that in 2025. That's not like operating. That's not serving me
Yeah.
well, and it's certainly not serving my son well to
Yeah.
be embarrassed of his dad and have this big like crazy drama. So it's going to be different for me because I just want it to be different. So I'm going to give you back that belief system and that little piece that I took back in the day as the way to operate when you're buying cars. I'm going to just give that back to you because it's
Yeah.
not serving me moving forward, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's just like, if we all sat down, and again, that's just a goofy example. I'm not trying to have you guys compare real life, really rough,
Yeah.
behaviors and belief systems with like buying a car. But I could kind of, again, I could take that out to like a larger belief system on how you kind of like, again, my dad was very confrontational and very, very aggressive, like in a lot of ways. And I had to readjust my belief system and how I wanted to operate as a grown man in front of my
Yeah.
kids. So they didn't have some of the similar, like very embarrassing stories that I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was I'm just trying to give you an example of a way where I consciously was like, how do I want to be different than my dad? And I'm gonna do it differently than
Yeah.
him, because
Yeah.
sometimes belief systems are formed for survival, right? And they are needed at that point in time, and then all of a sudden, flash forward 20 or 30 years, they're obsolete.
Yeah.
That belief system or that defense mechanism or that survival thing that you used to do to get through childhood, maybe that's not needed anymore, and
Right.
maybe that's affecting your intimacy with your wife, or your or how your kids are looking at you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Maybe you had to be really hard growing up, but maybe you can ease back because that's maybe really scary to your kids.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, my dad was a product of Vietnam. That's another piece of his story, right? So he was fighting
Yeah.
for his life at 19 in the jungles of Vietnam,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, of course he had different gears that I was not familiar with. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
I'm growing up with them in Southern California in the 80s and 90s, right?
Yeah.
But he has this gear that's like, no one else has this gear around here.
Yeah.
Well, that was his belief system being formed, fighting for his life again. You know what I'm saying? And so life is obviously complicated. But the point is, going back, and then I want to hear from you, but the point is going back to where you started, which is so correct, which is we need to constantly as adults remind ourselves that it is our responsibility, and we do have the ability to, again, change, reformat, relook at what our belief system is on how to deal with situations or who we are. right? So if dad told you you were a piece of shit for your whole life, that is really sad. And I don't want, like, my heart breaks for the little person that heard
Yeah.
that all the time. But at 30 or 40, it is our responsibility to throw that stuff away and realize, like, what a good person we are. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
truly feel that and believe that. And you can't, in my opinion, it's you can't just get there by understanding, oh, that was my dad's stuff. You know, you got to go do work to really emotionally get complete with dad.
Yeah. I think for a lot of this stuff, people don't realize how much control they have over the beliefs or the kind of story that they're creating in their life or with their family. Um, I've had, I heard this idea, I forget when, a couple years ago. The concept was that up until a certain point in your life, someone's holding the pen. They're writing the story for you, right? So up until a certain point in life, the story's kind of being written for you, and you're just kind of living out the story that someone else wrote. And this sounds kind of dramatic and self-helpy, but like I'll kind of just follow me for a second. There comes a point in your life where you can take the pen back and you can start writing. And I think that when I heard that, for whatever reason, that point in my life really resonated. It was at a point for me where I was going through a lot of transition with my work. So I talked about a little bit in the first episode what I do for work. I helped start a tech company 6 years ago that's gone from being, a 4-person small company to being a venture-backed company to now having 100 people and, pretty impressive customer list. And we've grown a bunch. And through that process, we've had to navigate a ton of transition. I've had to learn a lot and transition a lot. Most people haven't been there for that long. It's like to make it 6 years through a startup, you have to be a lot of things and become a lot, like you have to grow a lot.
Yeah.
And so what happens is the person that got you to that point, like the version of yourself that got you to day one of that job, is not the person that you need to be in year 6. And so you start to bump up against these beliefs about yourself, and the belief systems, they start to kind of just confront you. And you can't, it's almost like you can't get to the next level without kind of having to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I was hitting the ceiling of what I believed about myself before.
Yeah.
So I was good at art when I was younger. I was good at music. I grew up with, my mom was very artistically inclined and, very creative. My dad's a musician. I grew up in an artistic musical household. I didn't grow up in a, household with anyone pursuing, some big career or some, big entrepreneurial thing. It was kind of like they found jobs they liked doing. Their focus was on us growing up, luckily. And it was always celebrated my artistic and musical talents. Right. And so now I'm in a situation where, hey, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not one of these people. Like I'm a music person. Like I played in a band.
Oh, meaning the corporate stuff.
So as the corporate stuff's progressing and like more is being, like I have an opportunity to kind of grow into that more. It's like, well, why are these smart people talking to me? Why are these investors talking? Like I shouldn't be the one. Surely the smart people will be here soon to kind of take the reins over from what I'm doing.
Yep.
Where are they? Like why?
Yep.
Like why are they talking to me? It was always this kind of like, I'm just waiting for someone else to get here.
Yep.
So I can be relieved of my, how did I get into this position?
Yeah.
And so there was literally a point where I heard that concept. We worked with a coach through my company for a while, and we'll still do to an extent. And it made me realize that nothing was kind of, that was all in my head. That was all a belief system where, I believed about myself that I fancied myself a creative person that was a musician and an artist. And like, I wasn't one of these corporate people. By the way, I never really did great in school. I went to art school. And so now I'm working with people that came from like Microsoft and Amazon and had Stanford MBAs or whatever. Yep. And it's like, so of course I'm not the right person to be doing this, And so what happened was, through no change externally, only internally, of sorting through this and being like, this is literally just from me believing that I should be something because of how I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so I went through the process of like, well, what do I want it to be? You know,
Yep.
like who do I want to be? Like what? And that we've gone through this. I've gone through this now with kids and a family. Like, what do I want our family to be? You
Yep.
know, and it completely changed everything, straight up, dude.
Yeah.
Like the things that were my strengths in being creative and all that stuff are still my strengths, but it's like I like it, it's allowed me to kind of get out of my own way,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to really, again, nothing changed externally,
Yeah.
and it was purely of the mindset of, hey, I actually don't like this whole thing that I'm doing for myself. I feel anxious. I feel out of place. I feel insecure in these situations.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I can't remember the last time that I felt like nervous or anxious in like a corporate work setting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because I was able to kind of like understand why that was happening, kind of come to terms with the fact that, oh, that's why I was feeling that way, and I can kind of move past that now, and
Mm-hmm.
like fully kind of be okay with myself. And and again, this is a little bit of a redesign, but on the other side of it, it's like it's completely changed my quality of life. And anyways, that was a super formative experience for me, where again it was really kind of, and we talk about becoming the example that you want to leave behind for your kids.
Yeah.
That's a proactive, positive exercise of what do you want to create.
Mm-hmm.
You're holding the pen.
Yep.
You get to decide, dude. Like, do you want to create a life for your kids where they're growing up, without screens, and they're outside all the time, and they're, musical, and, whatever you want for them, like, you can do that, dude.
Yep.
And it's like, anyways, I'll go in circles, but I think just, the idea of realizing how much control you really have
Mm-hmm.
over this stuff was the big thing for me, is just realizing that I could change that. I could
Yep.
totally rewrite it. And I 100% was living out a script from a belief system that was developed in my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I was living it out without even realizing it.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of parents, most parents, are doing that. They're living out a script without realizing that you don't got to follow the script anymore, dude.
Yep.
You're writing the script now.
Yep.
You're 35, you're 40, you're 45. Why are you following mom and dad's script, dude?
Yep.
Like, if you don't like it, change it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love the way you kind of just articulated that. And that's the thing, like when I think of my wife and myself, right? My wife had a bunch of work to sort out what she wants her belief system to be, from mom and dad, what to give back to them, what to keep from them. And I did too, right? So this can be so beneficial too in just marriages and relationships too, because again, we pick up a lot of stuff, for better or for worse, on how to be in a relationship from mom and dad. What's acceptable, how to speak to each other,
Yeah.
right? How fights look, just a bunch of stuff that, like, we're just, again, like you said, we're not only playing out someone else's script in our professional career, we're doing it in our romantic relationships too, right? Obviously, this whole episode's about how we're doing it in our parenting as well. And it is our responsibility, again, to really figure out, no, what do we want it to be right
Yeah.
now? As an adult now, it is our responsibility,
Yeah.
to live the life we want to live right now. So yeah, no, I love what you said. I mean, there's not much more to say there. I would just say the nuance for me is, and Sam, we've talked about this in other episodes. Like, you're an analytical, logical thinker, which is great, right?
No, dude, I'm emotional now, dude.
I do. Oh, we haven't done an update yet. If you haven't listened to the emotional communication episode, go listen to that. But Sam has been putting that into practice, and guess who thanked me for that episode?
Who?
Your wife.
Dude.
She was very stoked on that episode, because she told me when we were camping, she was like, basically I never thought Sam would do this, and she, again, I don't want to get too much into that story because she didn't really give me permission to say that. But anyway, I think she appreciates you, putting some of that into
Well, I mean,
practice.
candidly, a lot of people have hit me up about that. People that listen to the podcasts have texted me and been like, dude, that's awesome. Like I'm doing it, like
Yeah,
I never thought of it that way. Like it's actually, anyways, yeah, dude,
cool.
don't put me in a box like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're,
Well,
you're,
you used to
you're,
be
you're
more,
reinforcing an old belief system.
dude. You're gonna use all my stuff against me now, dude. This is my
I'm
worst
going to do
nightmare.
a relationship graph on our relationship. And
Not if I get to it first.
yeah,
Um, where were we before that?
you were saying how,
Oh yeah. So anyway, you are a logical thinker, but also very emotionally available now. But again, hearing intellectually, hey, someone else wrote your script, and now you can write your script. You were able to work that out and
oh,
really set yourself free,
I know you're going. Yeah. Yeah.
which is great. And again, a lot of the time, awareness really can be like the catalyst or all someone needs. And then what I find is in other situations where maybe the pain, the trauma, the belief system was so inserted in such a kind of painful way, we find that, again, earlier emotional work to set yourself free of that stuff really helps allow you the freedom and
Yeah.
to change your belief system
Yep.
now, right? So there's I think there's a spectrum of how to do this,
Yeah.
and that's again for listeners out there where they're like, but you don't understand, Sam, you don't understand, Cole, like let me tell you my childhood, or let me
Yeah.
tell you what my dad did, or and those kind of things. Again, I could tell you story after story that would give you chills on like the amazing work adults have done to change again who they believe they are,
Totally.
as adults, and give back this like really lousy stuff to these other people that maybe didn't have the best intentions or didn't know what they were doing, or
Yeah.
whatever, fill in the blank.
I'm glad you're here to counterbalance. I mean, in the diet episode, I was like, yeah, just like don't eat a lot of carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, dude, I can't stop eating carbs. Like, like you're like, people have whatever pain or emotional issue they're dealing with, and that's why they're eating carbs. And it's like you can't just stop because you want to. And so,
Yeah, and you're gonna watch that tomorrow at my son's birthday party. You're gonna watch me turn into an emotional eater once those desserts start coming out. You're gonna have a first stand seat.
I'm feeling very emotional right now, smelling the cobbler wafting through the room.
Me too.
You can't see it or smell it, but there's literally like the smell of cobblers wafting through this room right now.
Yeah, it is not cool. Because
No.
Sam and I have already been working on breaking out cobblers today, but we're gonna have to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
I would love. I mean, it'd be cool at some point to do some of the. I'd love to do something with the grief recovery work through the Leave No Doubt umbrella. Like I think you're right, and that so many people, myself included, would get a lot. Men especially going through that process because a lot of this stuff is deeper than just just change it. Like just like you can just start. You can change whatever you want.
Yeah.
Just write a new script for yourself. It's like, well, okay, dude, not everyone's
That's right. Here's an example, right? If you grew up and people just always left, right? Dad left, uncle left, mom left, and then flash forward, you're 35, and then you hear this podcast, and someone's like, you can have the belief system you want right now.
Yeah.
They'd probably tell you to get, whatever. They'd probably be rude to you, because again, it's like that's they know that to be true.
Yeah.
Their life is people leave, people hurt you, and people leave, right? And it's like, well, right now, how open can you be as an adult? How open can you be with anyone when that is your belief system of what people do, and you have proof of it, right?
Yeah.
Which is even more insidious, right? It's really hard. So we're living as a shell of ourselves. We are not willing to really let people in fully, right? Maybe that's our spouse, and so those type of stories, we want to help people say goodbye to that pain, right? And I have seen it really allow people to open up, to have intimacy where they never could have it before.
Yeah.
Again, pursue promotions and really like move up the ranks where because they really really are emotionally complete with what was just stuck with them. We
Yeah.
don't have time in this podcast, but there's this thing we teach where it's stimulus, thought, feeling, action, right? It's like if the stimulus has too much charge in it, right? Then the thought and the feeling and the action, they go too fast and people don't have control of their reaction. So if you see people like overreacting to
Yeah.
something, that's usually old past like emotional hurt,
Totally, man.
right? And you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, dude, that was kind of an overreaction. Well, dude, that could be from years ago. So anyway, there's other stuff that we want to do, but we want to do emotional work around the past so that we lessen the charge, we lessen the stimulus around
Yeah.
stuff. So we actually have an opportunity to form a new habit or belief or not react the way we've been maybe reacting our whole lives, you know?
Yep.
So anyway, that's a piece of it. And I agree, like I want to help. One of the reasons I'm passionate about this podcast is because I want to help men specifically, fathers specifically, with grief recovery work. Because 80% of the people that do our work are women, and I love it. They're willing to do it. They come ready to work, and they're fearless, and they do amazing work. And
Yeah.
we help about 20% of our people we help are men. I would love that to be more because we need it as much as women do, right? So anyway, a practical thing you could do is get into that book. There's actions involved in the book. And the place where you would really discover a lot of the belief systems that were put in you are by doing what we call a relationship graph on our dad or a relationship graph on our mom or any authority figure that raised us, right? And in that, you're going to explore all of the above the line, the happy moments and
Yeah.
memories you have, and all the below the moments, right? So if I were to graph my dad, guess what would come up? Man, there was like a series of car buying experiences that were super weird. And was just like,
Yeah.
embarrassed and blah, blah. Anyway, I could articulate that. Okay. And I could either forgive my dad for some of that stuff or having me in that position, or I could, again, depending on the situation, if I wronged him, I could
Yeah.
apologize. I could do other significant emotional statements, but there would be a whole exercise for me to get emotionally complete with bits and pieces of our relationship.
Yeah.
And then that way, if I'm in the car dealership, down the road buying a car, there's way less charge in that whole experience because I did the emotional work to kind of put that behind me, right?
Yeah.
Where it's very hard to get there without doing any emotional work, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, like before I did work on my dad, anytime I go into a dealership, guess what I'm thinking about? The experience is 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So anyway, there's beautiful stuff we can do to remind ourselves that we are writing our own story now, and we are adults and we're responsible, right? It is on us and on us pretty much alone, where these concepts I'm not teaching to a child because they're at the mercy, unfortunately, of whoever's putting their belief system in,
Yeah.
right? So I'm not, don't misconstrue me as saying, hey, kids can do this too. This is adult stuff that we got to do,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, something that I think about too, coming from the hardcore world, is there are some belief systems that you kind of inherit or, adopt as part of that, right? And most people involved in hardcore, there's a lot of people that come from broken homes, people without dads, people with abusive dads, people with truly horrific situations. I mean, hardcore is a physical, relative, and arguably like violent subculture. Like if you go to a hardcore show and you don't know what it is, you're like, why are these people fighting each other?
Mm-hmm.
There is so much energy and outlet of emotion that I think people are all trying to figure out what to do with. And sometimes unexplainably, I don't know what drew me so much to that. Like I had a lot of physical just energy and just anger and just like aggression that I had to get out. And I still feel that way to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that because I think for a lot of people that come from that world, that are listening to this, it's like, dude, like there's a lot of really cool things about hardcore that you come away, like so much of my confidence and identity was built through hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was no one before I found that. I was like a weird kid, couldn't really figure out who I was socially. Didn't have a ton of friends, and I didn't like the idea of like drinking and stuff like that. Like I didn't want to go to parties. Then I found this really cool thing where everyone else was kind of weird and kind of like freaks and kind of had the same energy, and also they weren't drinking. And anyways, you do build like a kind of worldview and belief system through that process,
Mm-hmm.
which is all positive. I'm super like I as a almost 40-year-old, I'm still like, heck yeah, dude. I'm so
Yeah.
happy for that. I would just say that the work is not done, and especially there's so many people I'm friends with have had massively traumatic childhoods. And so it's easy for me to say, again, I didn't have a ton of childhood trauma. I'm just like, yeah, we'll just like make up new things. But like, I'm just underscoring that, yeah, if you have kids now, like there is more work to be done here. There's no, like, it's very unlikely that you're good to go. And I think there probably is a deeper discussion to be had on some of these, like, why do I freak out when this thing happens? Like, and that's why I think your work is so cool and why I think people should read the book. And that's why I'm reading the book. It's like, yeah, I think a lot of us have stuff to untangle that is informing how we act, how we react to stuff. There's still things that I react to. I don't know why I react so strong. Like I freak out sometimes with certain stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably because there's something there with
Mm-hmm.
how I grew up or how I was, a dynamic in that same situation that I was a part of when I was younger or on the receiving end, like whatever it is,
Yeah.
that still happens to me, dude.
Yeah.
And I know people that had, again, horrific childhoods. And it's like, I hope that people go through it and check, and are open to doing some of that work. Cause I think, again, like I think on the other side of that, I believe that you really can kind of continue to reinvent yourself and kind of
Yeah.
rebuild your belief system. So I'm just encouraging people to do that, and just be open to, hey, like maybe there's some stuff that I got to work out first.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. And the closest I've ever got to hardcore is maybe like a Bad Religion show.
I
So
mean, that's pretty sick, dude.
yeah, it was awesome.
We'll go to some this fall.
Oh, dude, I would love it. I would love it.
Yeah.
And and I've watched some of your shows on YouTube and stuff, but I don't claim to really know that world intimately by any means. Um, and again, I do love that community. I feel like in a different life, I could have really like vibed with that community too. And obviously I have uh, regular bouts of like absolute unchecked, like energy and
Yeah,
aggression and all of
totally.
that. Right. So I get that part of it. And I'll tell you this, like we have worked with like people, musicians like that, like high level, like amazing musicians, guys. We've worked with like tier one, military guys. So I don't want guys to be scared off. Like this is all touchy feely work. Like
Yeah.
this is work that is very accessible to guys if they just kind of put down the notion that this is like emotional work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I just really want to give the opportunity to guys to do this work, like you're saying, because what I see when I watch a show of yours, I see this beautiful community of people. Because when we're dealing with grief and trauma growing up and a bunch of stuff that no one is willing to talk to us about, think about how isolating that is to each of us.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go to a show and you have this community, right? And you guys are all have this outlet together, right? And it's like, so I think that's one thing that's looks from the outside looking in is so powerful is that community.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is there's a tremendous amount of like, it looks to me when I'm watching the shows as a massive pressure release valve.
Yeah.
Like we're getting to release that pressure. But what we're not doing, right, which is where I think our work fills in the gaps, is we're not actually going and unpacking what we need
Yeah.
to with dad, right, who wasn't there, or dad who was there sometimes, or
Yeah.
dad that did horrible things to us. So, it's like we can release pressure over and over and over, but have we got to like the core
Yeah.
part of it, So that's what we help people do.
Yeah. And that's something that transparently I think about and I'm sorting through now,
Yeah.
because I've always had the belief of like, well, yeah, I have all this energy, and like, hardcore was kind of where I went to, like relieve that when I was younger. And now I, lift weights and blast metal music. And, but
Yeah.
just recently since meeting you, I'm like, should I feel that way? Like, like, is there something going on there? Like, is
Yeah.
that just, how I am, or like, is there something that I have to look more closely at?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, right? It's like none of those things are bad, right? It's like, dude, I love going to a show. I love lifting weights. Like those are all good things. And
Yep.
then this is just another tool in your toolbox as a guy, as a husband, as a father, right? And
Yeah.
I love that you're looking into it. And I can't wait. I mean, we've talked about this, and you and Raquel are busy, but at some point, I look forward to you doing the work.
I'm
And
trying to
I
come out, dude.
What's that?
I'm trying to come out to the whatever the next ones are.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
I want to do it. I
yeah.
think it'd probably give us a lot of cool ideas for the
Oh,
podcast.
for sure. I really, I'm excited to see your take on everything, once you go through it that way. But yeah. Um, Again, I want people to know, like sometimes people come to our work and they're desperately just trying to get back to zero.
Yeah,
They've been beat so much by life that they're just trying to get back to zero. Some people are trying to fine tune and optimize their life. And most of us are somewhere in the middle of those two extremes. And it's like, if that is you, like keep going, keep doing the work, keep discovering stuff, because really, again, like I've seen people really transform
dude,
their belief
100%.
system and their
Yeah,
heart, with who they are, and you get to really, like, if the quality of your life isn't what you want it to be, right?
yeah,
Get get working,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know.
dude, I have seen so many examples of people that have like their arc of growth and transformation. People I've known for a long time has never slowed down. You know,
Yep.
my friend Alex, it's like he's completely different than he was 10 years ago when we were in our
Mm-hmm.
mid to late 20s.
Yep.
Like he's just continued to kind of grow and evolve, and all positive.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, not to like trash more people than we have already today, but it's like it is like a meme of like dudes that like graduate from college and then they're just on cruise control and they're just talking about the good old days. Like they peaked in college and
Yep.
like, playing grab ass at their frat house, and they're talking about the football, like the touchdown they scored for the rest of their life.
Yep.
And it's like the mold has been set
Mm-hmm.
and they ride off into the sunset.
Yep.
And so I don't know, man. That seems kind of like the go-to, but I just have so many examples, and you're a good example of this. Like I feel like since I've known you, changed a ton. Like you've evolved and like tried stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
you're different than when I met you.
Yeah.
And
Likewise. Yep.
yeah,
I
so
know.
like
I know what you mean.
yeah, so
Yeah.
like yeah, I just want to say, man, like if you're not already doing that or on that path, like you totally can, and it's never I'm in my 30s, 40s. I'm kind of locked in now. It's like no, man.
Yeah, yeah, and we've mentioned this, but a theme I really hope you pick up is like, if you're listening, is you got to go find those peers, those friends that are on that same path. Like, again, there's a reason we hang out together, because it's like, oh yeah, like I feel like I don't know if it's humility, right? But like, I come at it from this place of I try to be humble and be like, yeah, I'm a flawed individual that has a lot of work to do. And I feel like when you come at it from there, you're always hungry. Like you're always wanting to improve, right? Where a lot of those people that you talk about, right? Like that are kind of done after they've peaked in college or whatever, they're just not doing any assessments of
Yeah,
themselves, like some really brutally honest assessments with themselves, and I feel bad for them, and
yeah,
mostly I feel bad for their kids, because they're missing a lot of opportunities there. Yeah, well, I think we can leave it at that.
yeah,
If again, an actionable thing would just sit down with a notepad, right? And really just try and make a list of places or events, let's say over the last, decade, where you've like overreacted, or where your wife does that thing and it really presses a button in you, and you know in your heart that that button is like way higher than it should be,
Yep.
right? Or let's say your kids do stuff and you get really mad. Just wherever you're prickly in your life, make a list of those things and just start thinking on why are those things so charged for me? I
Yeah.
know they're more charged than they should be. I know that if it was like Sam sitting here, he probably wouldn't be as charged as I am, right? Start doing those kind of things, and that will give you an idea of where some of these belief systems maybe came from, or where maybe
Yeah.
there's some incompleteness,
Yep.
that kind of thing.
Yep.
Um, Again, just to get in that habit of doing some regular self-assessment of like where you're at, or where there's maybe some work to be done.
Yeah. And I mean, some other examples of stuff that I've done recently. The whole inspiration of this podcast actually came from, I had a journal that I got this year that I literally called the Leave No Doubt journal before we had the podcast.
Dude, this is the first I've ever heard of this.
Really?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. Because I was like having the thought of what are the areas that I'm not happy with, right? And like what do I want for the example that I leave behind, right? And so that was where that phrase came from. And this is again just personal, just me privately. I was like, I want to leave no doubt about what time it is when I die. Like this is who Dad was.
Mm-hmm.
This is what he was about. This is, the type of example he set. I didn't want there to be any questions,
Yep.
And so I had a journal that says, I'll take a picture of it. It says like, leave no doubt, 25. And so I had a couple areas where I was like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. I'm going to work on this. That's an exercise that I've done. Another one I did was a couple years ago, I wrote down a family vision statement of like, what life do I want to create for our family? This is probably too much information, but like, I literally like went through that. I was like, well, I want us to, I want us to live in this place. I want our kids to be like this. I want us to, our values to be this. I want, I wrote a paragraph.
Yeah.
And so those are both examples of proactive things of like, okay, well, like the past is what it is. Here's what I want to build going forward.
Yeah.
For myself. So those are just examples, like things that I've done that I that have worked or helped kind of get my mind in that kind of mode of what do I want to create.
Dude, I love that. And let me just say this. If you're listening and you don't do that, but you do a lot of fantasy football stuff, you are wrong. Okay? This is the type of stuff men need to be doing in 2025. Like Sam, like I got goosebumps. It's like you're doing assessments of your family, where you want to be, strengths and weaknesses. Like that is where we need to be spending our time, not on the next freaking Marvel movie or some video game or some, fantasy football. Like this is the type of stuff we need to be doing as guys. Like if we want to, we haven't really gotten into this, but I think one of the things that we're frustrated about is just the way society is moving. That's why we're so intentional on how we're raising our kids, because there's so much that's like normal now that we're like, how is this even normal? We need a lot more dads. We need a lot more men correcting course and like pouring themselves into development, both of them and their children,
Yeah.
not wearing some other guy's last name jersey on your back. Like, you know what I mean? So we've worked hard to really drop audience today. There's another one, the fantasy football.
We've also learned that we've also learned that you might be unresolved about fantasy football for something. It seems to be a trigger for you.
I've never done it, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before, but it's like doing what you just said. Like if your whole purpose in life is you're thinking about what's the life I want to create for my family, and here's the areas I'm going to do it, and I'm going to potentially make some radical decisions in how I raise my kids. Like that is so different than what the norm is.
Yeah.
That it's insane. And it's sad. Like, of course you should think about those things.
I mean, yeah, like again, not to harp on this, but could you imagine if dads in America, just like the amount of effort they put into fantasy football, if they would just put that same effort into like how to actually bring my family up to the next level,
Yeah.
how to help my kids. Like, could you imagine what type of country we would be? I mean, how?
It's unspeakable, dude.
Yeah, and again, not to pick on the fantasy footballers, but I love saying fantasy football. uh, again, right?
It's like football is already bad, like watching football, but now the fantasy just adds a whole new layer to it.
Actually, you're right, dude. I'm sorry, fantasy football guys. I want I want to apologize. You're right. The amount of time dads spend just watching other men play sports on TV is like equally as cringe. And if you spent more of that time like helping develop your family, like it would be a game changer,
Yeah.
you know. And it doesn't count like but I watch TV, I watch football with my kids. That doesn't count. Maybe. I don't
We've
know.
like fully eradicated our entire audience today. Oh, dude.
Oh boy.
I, just to clean this up a little bit, I respect football, dude. Like football's on. I think it's sick. I love the sport of football. I fully support it.
I'm not quite there.
But
I support baseball. Anyway, go ahead.
football's sick, dude. The point is, if you spend more time doing that than other essential things, that's the issue.
Yeah, because look, right? Fantasy football is like all midweek, right? And then Sunday is all football. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to like, you don't want to mess with our hurt our audience's feelings, but it needs to be said.
If you're
Like,
more interested in watching muscular grown men chase each other around than chasing your own kid around, then I think that's a problem.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just wrap there. um, that's a belief system issue, right?
True. It is.
All right. We apologize for the last 7 minutes of this podcast, but we want to thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe. If you got dads or friends or dads or people who are about to be dads that you think could benefit from this, please share it. And please comment. Let us know what you want us to cover. Let us know what topics are important to you. We love the feedback we've been getting. We appreciate it. I think we're up to like 14 or 17 listeners now.
We're down to single digits after this. But.
Yeah, we're gonna have to build those numbers back up. So, if you know anyone, I guess that doesn't watch football or road bike,
Yeah.
or do fantasy football or game that wants to listen, let them know.
Yeah. I mean, in all seriousness, we've gotten awesome text messages. This whole thing felt like a, kind of personal project almost, like that we just came up with and were doing for a while and kind of figuring out. And the stuff that we get in messages and comments and texts, it's like, whoa, like people are actually listening to this, like,
Yeah.
and getting something out of it. And that's been such a rewarding experience. Cause I remember talking about this concept and I was like, well, even if it doesn't work, even if it helps like one person, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep. And man, I've already heard from, dozens, if not hundreds of people that are just like, dude, this is amazing. Like, like I'm so stoked you guys did this episode about this thing, or, like stuff that's actually like really personal and impactful. And, man, that's been super cool.
Yeah, we're really inspired. I think that's what you're saying is we're super inspired. And I think like, I don't know, I've never articulated it this way, but it's like, again, our kids are going to be interacting with other kids, like, and that's going to be the society, that's going to be the next generation, right? And so we're all kind of in this together as dads, right? Making sure that this next generation is like healthy and taken care of and has the opportunities we all want them to have as parents. And so again, I do feel like we're both passionate like about this, even if we don't get sponsorships by Soda Waters or Equip or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's like we're passionate about just like talking to other dads. We get to meet a lot of dads, like we're always meeting new dads too. And I think like it's it's an honor to be able to just put these out there and have people
Yeah.
like actually listen, you know.
I mean, we just did the episode. I don't know what order we'll do, but we did one about kind of navigating the identity change of becoming a father and the kind of mental shifts. And the whole concept of that is it's basically, dude, how sick is it to be in this position, to be a dad, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to influence and positively impact your kids and future generations? It's like this, what an exciting position to be in, you know, where we're able to shape the next generation of people, you know, and
Yeah.
like meet other dads and potentially help other dads with that too. Like that's such a cool thing, man. Like that's
Yeah.
so much cooler than fantasy football. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's look, congrats, you have the most important role of your life,
Yeah.
right? Don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
Don't squander that time building out a fantasy football team. You
Yeah.
know, spend that time being the best dad you can be and the best husband you can be. And guess what? That takes some work, right? There's stuff we all need to work on, and like, and it's we're because of the work that I do, you know, and because of the work, honestly, you do too, right? I mean, you're in estate planning. That whole business is around things don't go always
Yeah.
as they're planned. I'm in grief work, so I know that too. Like, I think it always helps guys, especially to be reminded we are not promised tomorrow. Like, we are not promised tomorrow. And I think if you have that mindset a little bit more, then all of a sudden the choice between like drafting your fantasy football team and like going out in the woods and spending 5 hours with your kids, I think that choice becomes a lot better when you don't think you're going to just have 40 years. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know that. You may have tomorrow. Today
Yeah.
may be your last day. Like, what are you doing today to leave no doubt
Yeah.
and to spend that time with the people that matter the most,
Yeah.
right? It's like on someone's deathbed, right? They are not talking about a fantasy football team. They're not talking about Madden football, right? It's about the relationships. More specifically, it's about your family. Like,
Yep.
if you've been by that deathbed enough times, you know, or heard families talking about that stuff enough times, again, you just don't have time for this like shallow surface level nonsense. You know, every now and again, yeah, jump on your road bike and road bike a little bit. But for the most part, you know, spend time with your family.
I might talk about this cobbler on my deathbed.
He will not, you will not talk about this cobbler on your deathbed at all.
That's what I'm feeling like right now, dude. It just sounds so good.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Until next time, this is the Leave No Doubt podcast, and thanks for listening.
Stay tuned.
Alienated more people.